former director of pediatric neurosurgery, Dr. Benjamin Solomon Carson.
Thank you. We're delighted to be here. It's my wife, Candy, of almost 40 years. You know, it's very difficult to be successful in any arena without a good person by your side. And, you know, for me, I realized that when I was a youngster, a teenager. I said, Lord, I need a good wife. and I said, when I was 21, I said, Lord, the next relationship, let it be the right one. And it was. Almost 4 years. But thank you for your kind invitation and for your interest in sustaining our nation for the next generation. I was here a few months ago, stopping for my friend Senator Tim Scott. He's a really good guy. And before I go on, let me just make clear one thing, which should be apparent pretty soon. I'm not politically correct. Nor do I have any intention of becoming politically correct, because the fact of the matter is, the stakes are too high right now. And we can't afford to let a bunch of people control us, and control our speech, and control our thought patterns. And they don't care if you don't agree with them. They just want you to shut up. But you know what? If we abide by their rules and we just say what they say we can say, they win by default. And we don't want them to win by default. And, you know, they believe in political expediency. You only do what's politically expedient. You only say what's politically correct. And I have a different philosophy. I believe there is such thing as right and wrong. We do what's right, not what's wrong. The progressive movement is a large part of pushing the PC agenda. And, you know, they tried to label people. Remember when you were in the 2nd grade and the 3rd grade, and you had people always running around trying to call you names and trying to attach labels to you? Well, see, they never grew up. And, you know, we need to mature in this country, start thinking about other things. But, you know, they tried to put on the Republicans, for instance, the label of people who are not compassionate, who are hateful, who are racist, and every kind of horrible thing imaginable. Is that the same Republican Party that was formed largely as an abolition?
Yeah.
Is that the same Republican Party that fought for the rights of the freedmen to have guns so the KKK couldn't just come and kill them at will? Is that the same one? Is it the same one who pushed through the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Bill against the vehement opposition of the Democrats? Same one. Same one. Same one who encourages personal responsibility so that people can become a part of the American dream and not be dependent on the bottom rung of our society. This is who we are and what we must begin to emphasize to people. Don't just allow the progressive movement to define us, because that's not who we are. What they are defining is who they are. They are the party of, quote, compassion. Is that the same compassion that halted the rise of the black community in this country, which was rising astronomically from the time of slavery right up until the mid and late 60s, after which now it's going down because of their great society? Is it the same Democratic Party who patted people on the head and said, there, you poor little thing, I'm going to take care of all your needs, your food and your housing and your health care, because you can't do it yourself anyway. But we're good, wonderful people. We're going to take care of you, and all you have to do is vote for us. Is it the same one that we're talking about? I wonder. The same ones who've done so much good for people. In 1969, 1.4% of our population was on food stamps. And now on the SNAP program, we have over 14%. Wow, that's great progress. 10 times as many. Obviously, their programs are working extraordinarily well. But, when I was a youngster, growing up in the midst of all that, and hearing all the things, one of the things I remember so vividly is people around, whenever the government would announce a new program, and they would be so excited, we're going to get more goodies. But my mother really did not buy into that stuff at all. She was one of 24 children, got married when she was 13. And, years later, discovered that her husband was a bigamist. So she had to get divorced. And, she only had a third-grade education. She had to raise me and my brother on her own. And she worked 2 to 3 jobs at a time. And she was determined to stay off of welfare. She occasionally accepted some assistance, but for the most part was successful, because she noticed that people who went on welfare for the most part stayed on welfare. And she didn't want that. She wanted to be independent, and she didn't want that for us. Now, I find it interesting that there's some people who say, well, if you benefited from welfare, then you should be a big advocate of welfare. You shouldn't be talking about anything that in any way interferes with that. I believe in a safety net for people who need a safety net, but I do not believe in a system that chronically places people in a state of dependency. And this is not what we need. She didn't know what to do, so she prayed. And she asked God to give her wisdom. And the good thing about God? You don't have to have a PhD to talk to him. You just have to have faith. She had faith that he would help her to understand what to do. And he opened her eyes, and she looked around in the houses that she was cleaning. And they were houses of well-to-do people, and she noticed that they didn't sit around watching TV all day. They read a lot of books. So she came home and she imposed that upon us, much to our consternation. We were not at all happy, but in those days you had to do what your parents told you. There was no social psychologist saying let the kid express himself. So, I had to read the books, but as I started reading books about people, it had a profound effect on me. I remember one of the first books I read was about Booker T. Washington. He was born a slave. It was illegal for slaves to read. Well, why was that? Because people knew that a man who could read would become free. So they didn't want that to happen. But he taught himself to read. He read everything he could get his hands on. And he ended up as advisor to presidents. And I read about a lot of people. And I began to notice a pattern. And that pattern told me that the person who has the most to do with what happens to you in life is you. It's not somebody else. It's not the environment. As long as you have the ability to make the choices and put the energy into it. And we have got to get that message across to America, that we are not victims. No matter who comes along, even if Al Sharpton tells you you're a victim, you're not a victim. things are impossible. You can't do this, you can't do that, and the other. Nothing is possible until you do it, and then it's possible. Everything is impossible before that. Come on. I mean, this is America, the place that gave rise to the expression can-do attitude. You know, we don't sit around and think about what we can't do. We think about what, through the grace of God, we're able to do. You know, I remember when I was in high school, and I used to get teased a lot because I didn't have very nice clothes. You know, we were poor, we couldn't afford anything. And I saw a guy walk by with an ROTC uniform. And he was a full colonel, and he had all these ribbons and medals. And I said, wow, I should join the ROTC. And then I could wear that uniform, and people wouldn't be teasing me about my clothes. So it was perhaps not the right reason to join the ROTC, but I joined it. And you know, once I was in it, you know, by that time I had turned things around academically because of the reading program that my mother had put us on. I went from the bottom of the class to the top of the class. So I was fairly ambitious. I was reading the books. And there I was, but I joined the ROTC a semester late. You're supposed to join at the beginning of the 10th grade. I joined at the middle of the 10th grade. So, and yet, I said, if I'm going to be in the ROTC, I want to be a full colonel. I want to reach the top rank, and I want to be the city executive officer. Now, that was impossible. No one had ever done that before in that short period of time. But I said, why not try? And I put all my efforts into it. You'll have to read one of my books to see how I did it. But I did wind up as the city executive officer of the city of Detroit. And I got a chance to meet General Westmoreland, get to go to Congressional Medal of Honor dinners. Was offered a full scholarship to West Point, and really developed a great appreciation of the military, which we've always had. Kenny and I have always had a lot of friends in the military. And I'll tell you, we know a lot of generals in the military. These guys are smart. And I'll tell you, a president who goes around firing these guys and trying to micromanage them doesn't know what he's doing. In fact, I'm willing to say that if you allow our military to do what they are capable of doing without tying their hands behind their back, it will not be long before ICE is as ICE was. But you know, a lot of people, you know, they say, Carson, come on now. You don't have any political experience.
Good.
And why would you be thinking about doing anything in the political realm? Guess what? It's not about me. It's about we, the people. This country was designed around we, the people. And the government is supposed to conform to us. We're not supposed to conform to them. Our founders wanted to make sure there was no such thing as a political class, a select small group of people out of which we would consistently pull our leaders. That hadn't worked so well for us. That's why we're in the situation that we're in now. What we need are intelligent people who have common sense, who know how to listen, who have some humility, and who have faith in God. And that will get us out of this problem and let us once again excel to the pinnacle of the world where we belong and to lead the rest of the world in the direction of God. In a couple of days, the President is supposed to do the State of the Union address. And we've already heard some parts of it. He wants to increase taxes on the wealthy. What else is new? Now he knows that there's not a snowball's chance of that getting by with a Republican Congress. So why is he doing it? Because he studies his Bible. His Bible is called Rules for Radicals. And Alinsky says, you must always keep class warfare front and center. No matter what, just always keep it out there because you want to stir up dissatisfaction and you want to create the atmosphere for a desire for fundamental change. That's what it's all about. They want to change the nation in which we live. And that's why they create all these wars. War on women, race wars, age wars, income wars, religious wars, every kind of war that's imaginable. But we, the people of the United States, need to recognize that we are not each other's enemies. The enemies are those people who are trying to make us into enemies. We have to wake up and understand that they are our enemies. We are not each other's enemies. But I'm sure he's going to talk about these rich people and how horrible they are. And some of them are horrible. You know, I know a lot of horrible rich people, but I know a lot of horrible poor people too. Horrible people, period. And it has nothing to do with their income. And you know, the fact of the matter is, I do agree that we do need to do something about taxes. There's no question about that. We have a horrendous tax structure. It's too complex, nobody can comply with it, and it's unfair. And we need something that is equally fair across the spectrum for everybody. And that means either a flat tax or a fair tax. But we need to sit down and we need to figure out. And the important thing is that whatever we come up with, it needs to eliminate the IRS. Right. Yeah. What we have to realize about the progressives, they're not evil people. They just have a different belief system. Their belief is that they can achieve utopia here on Earth with a government that controls everything, takes care of everybody from cradle to grave. There have been other societies that thought that was the right way to go, but they all end up looking exactly the same. Small group of elites at the top who control everything, a rapidly vanishing middle class, and a greatly expanded dependent class. And that's exactly where we are headed if we continue down this progressive road. And we have got to wake up very, very soon. You know, one of the first things you do to fundamentally change a society like ours, you take control of people's health care. Because that's the most important thing that they have. And if you can get control of that, you get control of everything else. That's why I've been so vehemently against the health care program that the president has put forth. Not to mention the fact that it doesn't work. But, and you can read about our alternatives. American Legacy PAC, Save Our Health Care. We've talked about it. I'll continue to talk about it. What we have to do is we have to convince our Congress that they must embrace one of these alternatives and really advocate for it, because you will never be successful in repealing Obamacare unless you have a replacement for it. And they're going to have to be aggressive about this. We can do it. There are a lot of very good alternatives. And they cost much less money, but the principle must be we put health care back in the hands of patients and physicians, and we have a system that takes advantage of our free market economy, because that's what controls price and that's what controls quality. Government will never control price and they will never control quality. And we're dreaming of what people are going to do. You know, the good Lord has blessed this country with incredible energy resources. You know, we are now the #1 oil producer in the world. We need to bring Keystone XL down soon. We have more natural gas than anybody can imagine, enough to last for 1,000 years. We now have the ability to liquefy it. We need to use some of our energy resources to pay down our national debt. The progressives would have you believe that, no, it's all evil, and only renewable energy sources are things that we should be looking at, solar energy and green energy, and the two shall never meet. That's just plain stupid. You know, we're smart enough to be able to do both. We can use our resources that we have now, and we can continue to work on clean energy. The Environmental Protection Agency needs to be changed in its mission, from persecuting the energy developers to helping them develop our energy in a clean, responsible way. And, you know, some of the progressives have been saying, look at how well the economy's doing. And they want to say they're responsible. You know what's responsible for the small increase in good that we see? It's the fact that we have an incredibly strong economy. And we can't knock it out, even with all of these horrible policies that are going on. That's what's good. And can you imagine what will happen if we revise our tax structure and make it something that incentivizes people again? And if we get rid of the unnecessary regulations and we create an environment that allows it to thrive, and then there will be jobs for people, and if people have jobs and we can show them the right pathway to the American dream, they will forget about all these government programs. But the reason I believe that some of these stupid policies are in place is because they want to keep the economy depressed, because people won't want other silly programs if we have a vibrant and dynamic economy. But you know what? We're going to get a vibrant economy. But let me close with this very important thought. There, in 2012, 93 million people who could have voted did not vote. 30 million evangelicals did not vote. We want to blame them and we want to say they're irresponsible and lazy. But I got to tell you what, it's not completely their fault. And I know this from traveling all over the country. My wife and I have been in 4 or 5 states a week for the last year and a half, listening to the American people. I can tell you why those people didn't vote. Because they don't see one iota of difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. And we need to make it clear to them that there are some of us who know what America is about. And we are willing to put the Constitution back on the top shelf where it belongs with all of its amendments. We are willing to look at it in its entirety. We're not going to pick and choose the laws we want. We're not going to pick and choose the people who are our favorites. And there's only going to be one special interest group, and that is the American people. And if we do that, they will start, I guarantee you, they will start to see something different. But it requires courage. And we have to stop being afraid. And the next time you hear a congressman or a senator say, well, we would do that, but they're going to blame us, just punch them in the nose. Because they're going to blame you anyway. And the fact of the matter is, there comes a time when you have to do right. And recognize that freedom is not free. You have to work for it every single day. And that's what we're going to do, and we're going to remember all of those people who worked for it so that we could be free. And if we're willing to pick up the mantle now and think about our children and our grandchildren and all the people who will come behind us, we will indeed have one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
is that we have two that we're going to be able to get forth. Michelle's our first question.
Thank you, Dr. Carson. Please tell us what would guide your decisions in foreign affairs, especially regarding our nation's security.
Okay, very good question. First of all, recognize that we are the pinnacle nation in the world. There is responsibility that goes with being the pinnacle nation in the world. It means you have to actually step out and lead. You can't expect other people to always fill in for you. So you have to act proactively, not reactively. So you look around the world, you see things like Vladimir Putin trying to reestablish his power base. What are we doing? Nothing. Okay, what we should be doing is establishing relationships with all the former components of the Soviet Union. What we need to be doing is strengthening NATO. We need to be making sure that they are all parts of it, and that Vladimir Putin knows that if he violates them, he violates us. You know, that's the kind of thing. We also need to recognize that the only thing that stops him right now is his financial situation. Yeah. We can use our energy resources to put him in his little box and shut the lid. You know, that's what we do. You know, as far as ISIS, you know, this is an existential threat to us. You know, they have said they want to destroy us, and we have to use all of our resources. You know, we use our financial resources, our military resources. We have to use our covert resources. We use everything we have. And we need to make sure that our military is well supported. We don't undermine them. And they should never be in a position where they're wondering, if I do this, will my country back me up? Yeah. We have their back. We don't care about us. We don't care about them. They need to know that. And our allies need to know that they are our allies. We don't leave our allies sitting in the lurch wondering, what will the United States do? And, you know, when we get out there and we're willing to lead, you don't have to worry about a coalition. They will come. But when you sit back and say, well, when the coalition gathers in, we'll do something. What kind of leadership is that? So I'm talking about also making sure, and I will readily grant you that I'm not an expert on all international affairs. But we do have a lot of people who are experts in international affairs. Some of the things that I did in my neurosurgical career were things that had never been done before. And some of them were very complex. And some of them required knowledge that I didn't have. But that's where your skill comes in, and putting together people who frequently have big egos, who can work together and who can understand what the goals are. And that's what the United States is. It's a large collection of people, many with incredible skills and knowledge. And if we learn how to tap that knowledge in the appropriate way, I think our best days will be ahead of us.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Carson, yeah, my question is, who would you appoint in your cabinet if you're elected president?
You.
I'm not so sure about your judgment.
You know, I think one of the things that's very important, and you know, as we're putting, you know, together our infrastructure, we have to have people who understand what our goals are. And I'm not just talking about, you know, yes men and bootleggers. I want to hear different points of view. But you want to hear them from people whose goal is the elevation of our nation and the elevation of all of the people in our nation. So those are the kind of people that we're going to be looking for. The real litmus test is, do they love this country? And are they willing to do what they need to do for this country? And they can potentially come from a variety of different places. You know, I'm not all that concerned, honestly, about a person's political label. I am concerned about whether they are pro-American or anti-American. We've gotten too much into Democrats and Republicans and independents and extreme right-wings. What we need to be talking about is what is pro-American and what is anti-American. And when you look at some of the things that are going on in our country right now, you know, using the IRS, for instance, to persecute political entities, that's not a Democrat or Republican thing. That is an offense to anybody who believes in America. These are the kinds of things that we need to do.
Thanks, Ben.